Okay, so because the course's name is Shakespeare and Empire, today we are tackling The Comedy of Errors by Shakespeare, of course, and the Bengali counterpart, that is Bhranti Bilash. So, first we'll begin by reading an in depth critical summary of The Comedy of Errors. So, often described as Shakespeare's most structurally perfect farce, The Comedy of Errors is one of his earliest and shortest plays. That's wonderful. Remarkable for its tight plotting, mathematical symmetry, and unity of time and place. Drawing on Plotine comedy, Shakespeare builds a whirlwind of confusion around two sets of identical twins using mistaken identity to explore questions of selfhood, social order, marriage, and civic law. So, before we begin, I would like to say what is farce comedy? So, farce is a subgenre of comedy that aims to entertain audiences through exaggerated, improbable situations, physical humor, and absurd misunderstandings. মানে যেগুলো হয়তো হবে না. So, first we'll begin with the setup, that is law, loss, and divided family. The play opens not with comedy but with the threat of death. Igion, I hope I'm not butchering the name. Igion, a merchant of Syracuse, is arrested in Ephesus. So, Igion, a merchant of Syracuse, is arrested in Ephesus, a city hostile to Syracusans because of a long standing feud. By Ephesian law, he must either pay a heavy fine or be executed. Before sentencing, Aegeon recounts his tragic history to the Duke. যে মারার আগে আমার গল্প শোনো. He and his wife Emilia once had identical twin sons, both named Antipholus. On the same day, they purchased identical twin servants, both named Dromio. A violent shipwreck split the family. Aegeon survived with one Antipholus and one Dromio. Emilia was separated with the other twins. That is another Antipholus and another Dromio. Years later, the son raised by Aegeon left home to search for his lost brother. Aegeon in turn wandered in search of the son who went missing. Moved but bound by law, the Duke grants Aegeon one day to raise the ransom, establishing the play's temporal unity and underlying tension. যে তোমাকে আমরা মারবো না, you give us the payment and you go away. ঠিক আছে? So I have a query here. The first point, the setup, law, loss, and a divided family. So in the story, years later, the son raised by Aegeon left home to search for his lost brother. So my question is, does both Antipholus and Dromio leave, or it is only Antipholus who leave? And because it says Aegeon in turn wandered in search of the son who went missing, is he again searching for Antipholus who left home, or Antipholus and Dromio? Which one? That's important questions we need to keep asking while studying. Okay, so only Antipholus leaves home first. Dromio goes with him. Aegeon later searches for both of them, but primarily for Antipholus, because Antipholus is the one who chooses to leave. Okay, so after the shipwreck, who is with whom? Aegeon has Antipholus of Syracuse, Dromio of Syracuse. Okay, Emilia has Antipholus of Ephesus and Dromio of Ephesus. মানে যারা এখন Ephesus এ আছে. So each Antipholus grows up with his corresponding Dromio. Right. So years later, who leaves home? Antipholus of so we have two twins, right? Two brothers, Antipholus, Dromio, Dromio. Okay, so in the shipwreck, Antipholus of Syracuse, because Aegeon is from Syracuse, we call them by that. Antipholus of Syracuse and Dromio of Syracuse. One set of twins are with the father, and mother Emilia has the other set, that is Antipholus of Ephesus and Dromio of Ephesus. Okay. So Antipholus আগে ঘর ছাড়লো নিজের ভাইকে খোঁজার জন্য, ওকে দেখে দেখে ড্রোমিও ছাড়লো. ঠিক আছে? ওকে, সো নাম্বার 2, 2 cities, এবার ওকে 1 ডে সময় হলো, যেই সময় তুমি টাকা জোগাড় করে দাও, দিয়ে তুমি বেরিয়ে যাও। টেম্পোরাল ইউনিটি একটা প্রে করো যে যা হবে একদিনেই হবে, ঠিক আছে? এই ইউনিটি অফ টাইম, প্লেস, অ্যাকশন অ্যান্ড আন্ডারলাইন টেনশনটা দেখালো। পয়েন্ট নাম্বার 2, two cities collapse into one, the twins in Ephesus. Unknown to Aegeon, both sets of twins are now in Ephesus. Antipholus and Dromio of Syracuse, outsiders, wary of Ephesian law and fearful of danger. Of course, ওরা নতুন জায়গায় আছে. And the other is Antipholus and Dromio of Ephesus. They're proper citizens now, socially established. Antipholus is married to Adriana, a jealous and anxious and emotionally anxious wife. তাহলে এইখানে অ্যান্টিফোলাসের বিয়ে হয়ে গেছে। The comedy arises because no character realizes there are two Antipholuses and two Dromios. Ephesus becomes a city where faces no longer guarantee identity, because তোমার মতোই হুবহু দেখতে আরেকজন এক্সিস্ট করছে। We understood that. Now, point number 3. The machinery of mistake, domestic, romantic, and economic confusion. Domestic crisis. Adriana and fun begins. Adriana encounters Antipholus of Syracuse, assumes he is her husband, and forces him home to dinner. Meanwhile, Dromio of Syracuse is ordered to guard the door. When Antipholus of Ephesus returns home, he is locked out of his own home, a moment that symbolically marks his loss of authorial marital control and civic identity. মানে ওর নিজস্ব বলতে আর কিছু রইল না, ওর ভাই ভেতরে ঢুকে গেছে, Antipholus of Syracuse. Okay, the romantic tangle. Inside the house, Antipholus of Syracuse becomes attracted to Luciana, Adriana's sister. Luciana is appalled, believing her brother-in-law is morally corrupt. While the audience recognizes the deeper irony, desire emerges precisely where identity is unstable. যেই identity unstable হয়ে পড়ছে, desire উৎপন্ন হচ্ছে. But we'll still ask this question. Why is desire emerging precisely where identity is unstable? We need to ask the tough questions in order to understand. What do we mean by identity is unstable? Of course, we know name, face, social role, সবটাই হয়ে যাচ্ছে. In Ephesus, these markers stop. People recognize the wrong person, names attached to the wrong body, roles are imposed without consent. Why does desire need stability in the first place? Kinship rules, marriage, moral boundaries. Luciana believes Antipholus of Syracuse is her brother-in-law, a married man. Yet his words of love do not sound like a husband's routine speech. They sound new, direct, uncontrolled. This produces a contradiction. Socially forbidden, emotionally compelling. That tension is where desire ignites. Desire becomes dislocated from role. Antipholus of Syracuse is not bound by marriage. তো বিয়েই হয়নি, কোনো রেপুটেশনই নেই রাখার, and civic identity in Ephesus, right? Because he is misrecognized, he occupies a space of anonymity, freedom from consequence. Nobody knows me. Desire emerges because he is not fully someone here, therefore he is not fully accountable. Why Luciana specifically? Luciana represents rational order, moral advice, patriarchal obedience. She constantly lectures Adriana about patience, female submission, marital harmony. When Antipholus of Syracuse desires her, it is ironic because desire reason ke interrupt kore dicche. Emotion interrupt moral instruction. এই যে basically Luciana যে এত কিছু বললো, moral instruction. Luciana's shock come not only from impropriety but from the fact that desire is erupting, মানে ওরও ডিজায়ারটা আসছে যেখানে ওর না আসা উচিত না. Because desire thrives in liminal spaces, moments of uncertainty, gaps between names and selves. Ephesus itself is portrayed as magical, uncanny, unstable. Desire mirrors the city's logic. Sudden, irrational, misdirected, excessive. The deeper point, very important. Shakespeare is suggesting something unsettling. When identity is no longer secure, desire is no longer governable. Of course, desire is not purely personal, blah blah blah. So we got it. Let's return to the story. Acha. Number three, the economic breakdown. A goldsmith mistakenly delivers a valuable gold chain to Antipholus of Syracuse. Later, he demands payment from Antipholus of Ephesus, who has never received it, right? When he refuses to pay, he is publicly arrested, exposing how legal and economic systems also depend on stable identity. তোমার মুখ যেটা সেটাই তোমার identity. Number 4, ফ্রম কমেডি টু ক্রাইসিস। এতক্ষণ কমেডি চলছিল যে ওখানে ড্রোমিওকে জোর করে গার্ড বানিয়ে দিয়েছে, এখানে অ্যান্টিগোলাসকে বাড়িতে নিয়ে চলে গেছে। ফ্রম ক্রাইসিস, ম্যাডনেস, ম্যাজিক অ্যান্ড সোশ্যাল প্যানিক। As confusion escalates, the tone darkens. Antipholus of Syracuse begins to believe Ephesus is enchanted, filled with witches and devils. Adriana interprets her husband's behavior as jealousy and madness, threatening the marital hierarchy. She hires Dr. Page, a grotesque parody of religious authority, to exorcise the demons possessing Antipholus of Ephesus. Meanwhile, Antipholus and Dromio of Syracuse, fearing violence, seek sanctuary in priory, transforming religious space into a final refuge from civic chaos. I have a few questions and answer them like you're writing a story, right? Antipholus of Syracuse begins to believe Ephesus is enchanted, filled with witches and devils. Why? Second, Adriana interprets her husband's behavior as jealousy and madness, threatening the marital hierarchy. Why? I want these two answers. I am very tired today, guys. Very, very tired. So Antipholus of Syracuse enters Ephesus like a cautious traveler. He knows the law, he knows the danger, he tells his servant to be careful with money, names, and strangers. In his mind, identity is still solid. I know who I am, the world should respond accordingly. But Ephesus does not. On his very first day, people call him by his name without being introduced because, of course, the name is same. Gold is pressed into his hands without him asking, the costly gold. A woman claims him as her husband with complete certainty. He looks at his servant Dromio for confirmation, but even Dromio seems to fracture, returning with stories that make no sense, as if reality itself is stuttering. Nothing violent has happened yet, nothing openly hostile, and that is precisely what terrifies him, because in Antipholus' world, order works like arithmetic. Name is equal to person, action is equal to consequence, money is equal to exchange. But in Ephesus, names float freely, consequences arrive without causes, gifts come without requests. So Antipholus reaches for the only explanation available to a Renaissance mind when reason collapses. Not error, not coincidence, but enchantment. অদ্ভুত কাণ্ড। যখন রিজন কোলাপস করে যাচ্ছ, ভাবছো কোনো ভুল হয়নি, এটা কোনো কোইন্সিডেন্স নয়, but enchantment. He concludes that Ephesus must be a place where witches walk openly, where devils wear familiar faces, where identity can be stolen without blood. This belief protects him. If the city is magical, if the city is enchanted, then he is not mad. And so Antipholus says, I am mistaken. He does not say I am mistaken. He says this place is bewitched. Number 2, why Adriana interprets her husband's behavior. Adriana has been watching her husband for a long time before this day ever begins. She lives in a marriage where her husband is absent, affection is rationed, fidelity feels uncertain. She already feels that love is slipping away from her grasp. Now on this day, her husband behaves strangely but not randomly. He denies his home, his dinner, his wife. He speaks with sharpness, suspicion, and sudden violence of mood. To Adriana, this does not look like coincidence, it looks like something emotionally familiar. She reads his behavior through the only language marriage has taught her: jealousy, male authority threatened, love turning into control. In Shakespeare's world, a jealous husband is already halfway to madness, of course, Othello. And Adriana understands something crucial. If a husband loses reason, a wife loses security. If a husband loses reason, a wife loses security. And when Antipholus lashes out verbally, denies her claims, and behaves as if the world conspire against him, Adriana does not think there must be another man who looks exactly like you, That idea is unthinkable. Instead, she thinks my husband's mind is turning against me. This is dangerous, not just emotionally but socially. Because if Antipholus is mad, her authority as wife weakens, her home becomes unstable, her marriage loses its hierarchy. Huh. So Adriana acts quickly. She brings Dr. Pinch not only to cure Antipholus but to restore order. She's not punishing him. She's trying to save the structure of marriage itself. Her husband পাগল হলে wife authority weaken হয়ে গেল. Her home becomes unstable and her marriage loses its hierarchy. Huh. Okay. Number fifth, recognition and restoration, the final revelation. At the exact moment Egion's time expires, all parties gather before the priory. Adriana demands the abbess release her. Demands the abbess release her husband. Antipholus of Ephesus arrives to accuse his wife and the city of mistreatment. For the first time, both sets of twins appear together, instantly dissolving the confusion. The abbess then reveals her identity. She is Emilia, Egion's long lost wife. The family is reunited, Egion is pardoned, debts are settled, civic and domestic order is reformed. The play closes with two Dromios exiting hand in hand, marveling at the miracle of brotherhood, a gentle human resolution to mechanical chaos. Hello, can you say who the abbess is and what was her role? Abbess. Hmm. Adriana believes her husband is mad and needs punishment or exorcism. The abbess directly contradicts her. She says, in effect, the sickness is not in the man, it is in the marriage. She diagnoses Adriana's jealousy, emotional excess, constant suspicion. In this moment, the wife is corrected, the husband is protected, the household hierarchy is momentarily reversed. মানে husband টপে চলে আছে. The wife is corrected, the husband is protected, for the household hierarchy is momentarily reversed. Number third, a space of truth and recognition. The priory functions as a place of sanctuary. Sanctuary. The priory functions as a place of sanctuary, a place where identity pauses. So identity तो नहीं priory सामने. A threshold between chaos and clarity. A place of a place of if I'm very sleepy, just forgive me, okay? A place of sanctuary. A place of sanctuary, a place where identity becomes unstable or identity pauses, a place of sanctuary, a place where identity pauses, a threshold between chaos and clarity. A place, so abyss becomes a place. The priory functions as a place of a place of sanctuary, a space where identity pauses, a threshold between chaos and clarity. A place of sanctuary. So abyss, prairie becomes a space of. Why don't I remember? Here is the struggle, guys. Here is the struggle. A place of sanctuary. Sanctuary, a place where identity pauses, a threshold between chaos and clarity. Sanctuary, identity pauses, chaos and clarity. Very good. The revelation completes the family narrative, the emotional core of the play. Importantly, Amelia never actively searches. She waits, truth comes to her. Hmm. So we are done with the summary of Comedy of Errors. I'll be back with the summary of Bhranti Bilash. Stay tuned.